The studio lights bore down on the courtroom hearing, casting an almost theatrical glow on every raised eyebrow and tightened jaw. The air was thick with anticipation, lawmakers, staffers, and reporters all waiting for the inevitable clash. At the center sat Judge James Boasberg, polished and smug, wearing the kind of half-smile that spoke louder than words. When he leaned into the microphone, his words dripped with condescension. "Congresswoman Crockett," he said slowly with a mocking lilt, "remind us again, where exactly did you get that law degree?" The tone wasn't inquiry. It was insult, an attempt to belittle her credentials before the cameras. The silence that followed was electric. For a moment, it felt as though Boasberg had landed the blow he wanted, reducing her to a punchline in front of a national audience. Some in the gallery even smirked, as if savoring the power imbalance. But Jasmine Crockett didn't flinch. She didn't rush to defend herself. Instead, she held his gaze with a calm so sharp it cut through the arrogance in the room. One eyebrow arched. Her expression said everything. "You've just made a mistake." Gasps fluttered across the chamber as she leaned forward, her voice calm but firm. And then it began. The unraveling of Boasberg's carefully crafted mockery. What Crockett said next left even her critics speechless, and left Boasberg visibly unsettled. The exchange might have seemed trivial on the surface. A judge mocking a lawmaker's degree. But beneath it lay the deeper fault line of American politics, elitism versus authenticity, power versus people. Boasberg represented the polished establishment, cloaked in robes and rhetoric, assuming his credentials made him untouchable. And Jasmine Crockett? She carried something far heavier than a diploma. She carried the lived experiences of working-class families, the fight for communities ignored, and the pride of being underestimated yet unstoppable. This was not merely about where she studied law. This was about who gets to decide whose voice matters in America. As the crowd shifted in their seats, the stakes became clear. If Boasberg could belittle Crockett without challenge, it would reinforce the old order, one where women of color were sidelined, dismissed, or mocked for daring to sit at the table. But if she stood tall and fought back, it would ripple far beyond those four walls. Crockett wasn't just defending her credentials. She was defending the dignity of every person who had ever been told they weren't good enough, smart enough, or polished enough to belong. The energy in the room thickened. Viewers at home leaned closer to their screens. Journalists sharpened their pens. This was no longer about a degree. It was about respect, representation, and resilience. And everyone sensed it. James Boasberg was no stranger to power. For years, his reputation had been built on precision, privilege, and a sense of entitlement that came with elite circles. Educated at the most prestigious institutions, Boasberg climbed the ladder of the legal world with ease, cultivating an aura of authority few dared to question. But that polish came at a cost. His record was punctuated with moments of tone deafness, dismissive rulings, and a tendency to mock rather than listen. He was the embodiment of the old guard, secure in the belief that experience and status were enough to shield him from criticism. To many, he was untouchable, a Goliath figure in the judiciary. Yet arrogance often blinds. Boasberg underestimated the growing hunger for authenticity and accountability. He dismissed the rise of voices like Crockett's, seeing them as noise rather than a challenge to his dominance. That day in the chamber, his smirk carried decades of unchecked authority. But behind the veneer, cracks were beginning to show. His arrogance wasn't strength. It was weakness disguised as certainty. And by mocking her credentials, he revealed not only his contempt, but also his fear. Fear of a new generation unwilling to bow to old rules. Foreshadow. Boasberg thought this was just another chance to flex his authority. He didn't realize he was walking straight into a trap of his own making. Transition. But arrogance only works until it meets someone who refuses to play by the old rules. Jasmine Crockett's path couldn't have been more different. She wasn't born into wealth or privilege. Her rise came through grit, determination, and a refusal to let barriers define her. A young woman of color stepping into the rough arena of law and politics, she faced every kind of doubt and dismissal. But instead of breaking her, those struggles sharpened her edge. She developed a reputation not just for intelligence, but for a fearless wit, the kind of comebacks that cut through arrogance like a blade. Colleagues learned quickly. Underestimate Crockett at your own risk. Her law degree was more than a piece of paper. It was a symbol of resilience. Every class, every case, every long night of study represented a climb against the odds. She didn't inherit her platform. She earned it. And now, seated before Boasberg's condescension, Crockett wasn't merely defending herself. She was standing for every outsider who had clawed their way into spaces designed to exclude them. Tease. Her calm stare wasn't silence. It was preparation, and it would soon flip the script in ways no one saw coming. Boasberg leaned back, satisfied with his jab, his voice rising with smug confidence. "Credentials matter, Congresswoman," he continued, as if lecturing a student. "Some of us worked our entire lives to reach these benches." The tone was sharp, dismissive, and dripping with superiority. He wanted dominance to remind her, and everyone watching, that in his world, power flowed from pedigree. But Crockett didn't bite. She let the silence hang, then began dismantling his arrogance piece by piece. Her counterpoints were precise, her tone measured but laced with steel. She didn't need to shout. Her words carried their own weight. The tension in the chamber rose with each exchange. Cameras zoomed in on her steady gaze, then panned to his twitching jaw. The audience shifted, sensing the confrontation was turning personal, ideological, generational. This wasn't just a debate over credentials. It was a duel over values. Whether leadership is earned by degrees and titles, or by the courage to speak truth in the face of power. The energy was cinematic. Every pause felt like a drumbeat. Every pointed question from Crockett landed like a hammer against Boasberg's wall of arrogance, and the silence before her next words stretched like the edge of a storm. Crockett leaned into the microphone, her voice steady and unshaken. "Judge Boasberg, let me remind you, my law degree didn't come from privilege. It came from perseverance. It didn't open doors automatically. I had to break them down." The words sliced through the room, commanding attention. She paused, letting the weight settle before continuing. "You ask me where I studied law. I ask you, what have you done with yours? Besides protect the same systems that keep people down?" Gasps rippled through the audience. A few muffled chuckles of disbelief broke the silence. Crockett pressed on. "Because while you mock my education, I've been out there, defending families who couldn't afford lawyers, fighting for communities ignored by your bench, and standing for people you'd rather not see." Boasberg shifted uncomfortably, his smirk faltering. Crockett's rhythm was relentless, each point striking harder than the last. "A law degree is just paper, Judge. What matters is what you do with it. And if you're so confident in your own, why are you so threatened by mine?" The room erupted. Gasps turned into murmurs, murmurs into applause. Phones lit up as viewers at home clipped the moment. Hashtags starting to swirl. None Crockett clapped back. Law and justice, more Boasberg exposed. Crockett leaned back slightly, delivering the line that would echo across social media. "So yes, Judge, I earned my degree. The real question is, have you earned your respect?" The silence that followed was deafening. Boasberg's confidence had crumbled. His stammered response never came. Cameras captured his stunned face, a man undone by the very arrogance he thought made him untouchable. And Crockett? She didn't need to add another word. The mic drop was complete. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere. Twitter feeds lit up with Crockett's takedown, the hashtags climbing to the top of the trending list. Instagram Reels replayed her mic drop line over and over, each edit sharper than the last. Commentators on both sides of the aisle couldn't ignore it. Some praised her poise. Others grudgingly admitted that Boasberg had been caught flat-footed. Memes flooded timelines. Boasberg's smirk before the clapback, followed by his stunned silence after. Celebrities chimed in. Activists shared it as proof of shifting tides. And ordinary viewers echoed a simple sentiment. Finally, someone said it. Boasberg, once untouchable, now found himself the butt of jokes. Late-night hosts replayed the clip with biting commentary. His smug tone, once his weapon, had become his downfall. Meanwhile, Crockett's star rose higher. She hadn't just won a debate, she had sparked a cultural moment. For millions, the exchange wasn't about law degrees at all. It was about the audacity to mock someone who fought their way up, and the power of refusing to back down. In the days that followed, Crockett's words echoed far beyond the viral clips. When asked about the exchange, she didn't dwell on Boasberg's arrogance. Instead, she reframed the moment as a lesson that dignity beats mockery, truth beats noise, and authenticity always cuts deeper than elitism. Her message resonated. "This was never about my law degree," she told reporters. "It was about the idea that only certain people are allowed to lead, only certain voices are allowed to matter. And I reject that with everything I have." By widening the lens, she turned a personal insult into a universal truth. Her resilience became a rallying point for anyone who had been belittled, underestimated, or mocked for daring to belong in places they were told weren't theirs. The lesson was clear. Arrogance might get attention, but authenticity wins respect. Boasberg had tried to reduce her to credentials. She elevated the conversation to values: fairness, justice, and resilience. James Boasberg mocked her law degree, but Jasmine Crockett's reply turned the tables and left him in regret. In a single moment, arrogance collapsed before authenticity, and dignity carried the day. Her words reminded millions watching. Respect isn't handed down by elites, it's earned through truth, resilience, and courage. And every time someone like Crockett stands tall, it's not just a win for her. It's a win for everyone who's ever been underestimated. If this moment left you as inspired as it left us, don't just watch it. Share it. Subscribe, spread the word, and stand with dignity. Because the next time arrogance tries to silence authenticity, we'll be ready to amplify the voices that refuse to bow.